Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 83 of the Hangout with Coach Kerry show. Wow, I can't believe it's 83 episodes, and I really hope you've been along the ride with me while I have produced so many of these episodes. I go back and look at the early ones and think, oh my, I certainly wasn't as comfortable as I am today. And of course, that happens when you practice anything, isn't it? When you do it over and over again. So I suspect that you're here watching this particular episode, or you've been an avid watcher of my other episodes because you are a solo entrepreneur, small business owner. You're looking for tips and strategies to help you be more successful, to get more done, to improve your productivity, to really, bust through any of those ceilings that you might find yourself hitting. And so if that's you, then welcome again. And if it's your first time, please come back and visit many times. If you're watching this, you're probably watching this on my website, HangOutWithCoachKerry.com. You can see it down below there, and Kerry is spelled Kerry, for those of you who are listening to this on podcast. There's lots of stuff on my website, so please do go there. Right now I have a book called How to Get Out of Overwhelm and Accelerate Your Results Now, and I really recommend you go and you download that book. You'll also get notices of upcoming events and programs. And I have a special program starting in the new year to help you have an incredible new year. So please do stay tuned for that. So today we're going to talk about your mind game, how to actually sort of bust through that mind chatter that we have to help you be more successful. And, while I know that a lot of my topics tend to be practical strategies on how to prioritize what tasks you have and how to strategic plan and all of that, our mind game is as important or more important, because if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do because of anything that's going on in your head, you're going to get stuck. So today I'm honored to have special guest, Lauren Heath out of San Diego, California. Hello, Lauren.
Hi, Kerry. How are you?
I'm great. Welcome.
Thank you.
Lauren is a success coach, and she has worked for many years in corporate America, and then has more recently ventured off to be working with entrepreneurs, people just like you. So she has over 20 years experience as a certified success coach, helping people master this whole sort of mind game piece. So I am really looking forward to today's episode, and we're going to dive right in. But what I want, Lauren, tell people a little bit more about yourself and really what attracted you to this whole area of success coaching around mind game.
Sure. Well, I have been doing corporate coaching again for a very long time. And about 9 years ago, I had a tragedy in my life, as many people do, to my brother, actually. And as I took him in and began to care for him, it really made me soul search of what I wanted to do. What was my purpose here? And I started doing a lot of reading and personal development and attending webinars and all of that, and adding that to my coaching as I learned it. And decided, I really want to help more people with this kind of thing. Because as I ask people, what is it you really want to do? What would really light you up and make you happy? Too many people looked at me with this deer in the headlights stare and said, wow, I never thought about it. And I said, what, I need to work in this area. This is what I really want to do. I want to help people get clear on their purpose and really love their life.
Wow, that's great. Well, I know that the people who are listening to this right now may get really clear on what they want to do, but they're stuck. So I know that you're going to be able to help them with this piece. So let's get right into it. One of the things I know and I see a lot is this whole self-sabotage piece. And I kind of alluded to this in the very beginning. So tell me a little bit about self-sabotage from your perspective and how it gets in people's ways.
Absolutely. We I don't know if it's just as a society or a human race type thing, but we have a tendency to be very supportive and encouraging of other people. And for whatever reason, just get in our own way as much as we can. And a lot of times it's fear. Or it's just doubt. These just emotions that just aren't really helping us, because if we don't even try, I always tell people, if you don't even ask, the answer is always no. So we need to be a little more willing to face that fear. A friend of mine actually said, fear is interesting because it's the only thing that gets smaller as you run toward it. So we have to be willing to,
actually. Yeah.
We have to be willing to run toward it, run toward what we want, and work through all of these little things that we tend to do to self-sabotage, because most of the obstacles we hit are ones we put there ourselves.
Right. So what you're saying then is really from a self-sabotage standpoint and mind game, it's really what we're telling ourselves, the stories we're telling, it's that internal chatter that we have that self-sabotages. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And story is a good word for it, because really it's a story, and it's a story that we have bought and allowed to rent space in our heads, and we can evict it. So we need to get clear on what is that story and what do we want to change it to. We can write a new story. We aren't bound to the old story. But
So go ahead.
I said, but a lot of people are very invested in that story. If you think about it, what do we tend to do? If something happens and it's part of our story, we go and tell everybody we know, oh my God, Kerry, you're not going to believe what happened to me today, and blah, 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 blah. And then the next person we see, oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened to me today. And we just keep living in that story over and over again, rather than making a choice to do something different. So we need to be willing to let go of the story.
Right. So I think the first thing I sort of got from you right in the very beginning was we have to be aware that we actually have stories, and they have us operating, would you say, kind of like on automatic pilot until we actually become aware of what's going on?
Absolutely. A lot of what we do is from our subconscious. And until we make it conscious, or even if we don't totally know everything going on in our subconscious, but we make a conscious choice that we want something different, until we do that, we're going to keep playing the same thing over and over again. So it's not always important to know why we have the story or even where the story came from. It's just important to know that we want a different story and start creating that.
Right. Okay, that's great, because I think sometimes we can dwell a lot in the reason why the story, and therein lies justification and the rationale for it. And again, as you said, we get pretty comfortable with that story. So what we really want to do is get to that place where we're really uncomfortable with the story, is figure out at least maybe what the triggers are. Would that be a good place to look as well?
Possibly. Again, it's not always important to know exactly where it came from, but it's important to pay attention to how it's making us feel. And we get a lot of attention when we tell our story, but it's not always good attention. So paying attention to how does it make me feel? So if you keep telling a story about something that made you feel bad, like somebody that said something unsupportive or even mean, if you listen and pay attention to your body, you're going to feel that. And it doesn't feel good. So your body's going to tell you if something is good or not good for you if you just pay attention. And that's the key. We don't tend to pay attention all that well. So just pay attention.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about sort of combating these stories then. What are ways to sort of combat them?
Again, is the first thing is pay attention to how it makes you feel. And as soon as you know that you don't feel good, then start thinking about things that do make you feel good. It's really about making that conscious decision. And it's similar to when you listen to the radio. And if you don't like the song that's on, you change the station. So if you don't like how you feel about whatever it is you're doing or thinking or saying, change the station. And it sounds really simple, and honestly it is, but it's a habit. So you have to break the old habit of living in that negativity and get more conscious about creating this new habit and give it time to build. But it really is about that simple if you're paying attention.
Right. Okay. So we got to pay attention. What are other ways to combat the self-sabotaging, do we call them beliefs or mindsets that we've got?
Sure. They can be beliefs, habits. They're all this kind of same thing in this context. The most common things I think that we do that tend to not serve us well are what I call the 3 C's. And the first one is comparison. We love to compare to other people and their results and say, oh, so-and-so has more than I do, or so-and-so got that, and then feel bad about it. What I like to do to combat that is say, oh, if somebody achieved a result that I want to achieve, then that's great. That means that it's doable. That means I can do it too. So celebrate it with them. Tell them great job and really work on meaning it, because right at the beginning, you might not totally mean it. And that's okay, because you're going to keep working on it. And again, remind yourself, if they can do it, I can do it. The second C is complaining. We are living in a culture that loves to complain.
Oh, don't we ever? Oh, I tell you, it's just enough to drive me bananas.
I know. And it's a cultural norm. So again, that's a bad habit that we just have to pay attention to and change. So when you catch yourself complaining, try to switch to an attitude of gratitude and look at something that you can be grateful about. Even if it's in a situation that you don't like, what's something you can get out of it? Is there a lesson? Did it create a connection even? Something in everything, there's a positive. So let's find it and be grateful for it. If you really can't find it, then just find something else to be grateful for. The final C that I wish people could get a little nicer about is criticism. And unfortunately, it's mostly self-criticism. So when we're talking self-sabotage, we are extremely hard on ourselves. And I'm not sure where that came from. Maybe it's cultural again. But learning to be kinder to ourselves and recognize all of the things that we do accomplish, instead of criticizing, oh, I'm not where I thought I would be by now. And God, why didn't I get so much done today? Look at what you did get done. Look at what you have accomplished. And some of it isn't going to be as sexy or exciting as some of other results might be. But that doesn't make them less important. So we really want to celebrate the successes, really focus on that attitude of progress. The Japanese use the term kaizen, which is really about incremental improvement. And so improvement isn't always big and flashy and confetti and all of that. Sometimes it's small, but it's really important. So pay attention to that.
I love those 3 C's. That's easy for people to be able to remember. So maybe at the end we'll recap that for people too. If they weren't able to take notes at the time, that'd be great. So so that's really about taking control. Any other things in addition to your 3 C's they can do to sort of take control of these self-sabotaging habits or mindset beliefs, you know, whatever's going on?
Absolutely. And some of it ties back to this idea of story, really being willing to let go of things. Again, we like the attention we get, but being willing to let go. So if somebody did something to you that really maybe wasn't okay, I'm not saying in any way you're going to say what they did was okay. But by letting go and practicing forgiveness, you're not letting it hurt you anymore. And people really argue with me about this. But what they did was wrong. It was wrong. I agree with you. It was wrong. And you're not saying it was right. But you're not going to let it hurt you anymore. And there's a meditation that I love called loving kindness. And I'll say it slowly. But it's basically you would say it for yourself, and then you can say it for another person if you're working on forgiveness. And it says, may I live in happiness. May I live in love. May I know the power of gratitude. May I know the power of forgiveness. And may I live with the knowledge that my life has deep meaning and true purpose. And then you can repeat that with someone else's name instead of yours. And it's hard. If you're mad at somebody or somebody really hurts you, it's hard to say, may they live, you know, may they be truly happy. May they live in love. But if you do that, it gets you to a better place where it no longer hurts you. That's the result you want.
Yeah. Well, it's a couple of phrases that came to mind that I've heard over the years. I think they're really applying. One of them is that when you don't forgive people, you're allowing them to live rent-free in your brain. And you know, that just it just is so true, isn't it? That we want to inflict pain on someone else, but they may not even be thinking about what's happened, and we're the ones who are you know, caught in this vortex of it going around and around and around and around. So just, you know, loving them and releasing it.
Even stronger than that, I've heard not forgiving or not letting something go is like you taking poison and hoping someone else dies.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
and you are basically, because feeling those feelings is creating negative chemicals in your body. So you are taking poison by not letting those things go. Yeah, and the other person may be living in blissful oblivion about it all.
Yeah. Well, our thoughts become our feelings. And so we can control those thoughts, then it'll control what our physical body is, you know, that stress levels we've got, as you said, toxins in our body. So much of our disease, you know, culturally in North America has to do with this high level of stress that we put ourselves under all the time. So I think that's great. The other phrase that my husband reminds me all the time is we either get to be right or we get to be happy. And you know, being right that person wronged us. Right. Doesn't make us happy. And so, you know, we can get stuck in that needing to prove that we're right. And the fact of the matter is it doesn't really matter in the end. Whatever happened, happened. Exactly. So great. I love these tips already. So what, let's talk for our next few minutes here about some other strategies of letting go and kind of tapping into your personal power. What are some of the things? Because I sense, Lauren, that you're incredibly practical here, and my audience is used to some really practical tips and strategies that they can take and use this week. So go fire away at it.
Okay, so another strategy that's very helpful to kind of get to neutral on something. So either say that you have a big meeting coming up, or a new client prospect meeting, and you're really anxious about it. And so you're feeling all of this anxiety. Another technique you can use is what we call the peace process, which means getting out of your head. So stop thinking about, oh, I got this meeting and this could go wrong, and get out of your head about it and think, where do I feel this in my body? And identify where it is in your body. It might be your stomach, or it might be somewhere else, but where is it? You can even put a hand over it if you want, because we have a lot of healing energy power in our hands. And really just give it attention, because that's what it wants. It wants attention. So give it positive attention. Again, not in the story, not keep ramping it up, because then you make it worse. But just give it positive attention, and that you might send it love. You might just send it peace or healing. Some people like images. They might imagine that they're feeling warm water over this feeling. Some people like sparkling light, that's surrounded in sparkling light. And you're not trying to make it go away. You're just sending it positive feelings of love or peace or whatever. The result normally is that it will go away, but that's not the objective of what you're doing. You're doing is giving it attention. And I do it better if I close my eyes, so I don't recommend doing it driving. Not a good technique in the car, but just give it some time. I like to do that before, if I have a big conference I'm speaking at, and there's a lot of people, sometimes I still get a little nervous. Just give it a little attention for a minute, because it's like a kid. If your kid is making a lot of noise at you, it's because they want attention. Same thing with your body. So really paying attention to that. And that's something, again, that takes practice. It's not going to necessarily solve everything, the very first time you do it, but keep working on that. I think the other thing is just creating space for different things. We get so caught up in our schedule and in our lives, in our to-do lists. Sometimes we just need to create space, which peace process is one way to create space. Just basic meditation is a great way to create space. But really think about, where am I giving my attention right now? I call it paying attention to what you're paying attention to. What am I paying attention to, and is it serving me? That's the basic question, is it serving me? I have tips all over the place. Probably one of my favorite tips is just asking myself if I'm getting myself wound up about something, and I literally would just say, let's stop. And I'll tell myself stop, and I'll even have my hands up, stop. And I'll say, okay, what's one thing that I can do right now that's going to be better? Just one thing. Even if it's that I'm too wound up about this and I need to go do the laundry or take a walk around the block for a minute just to calm down. But what's one thing? Because most of us can put our mind around the concept of one thing. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love that, that piece about, paying attention to what I'm paying attention to. I think that's a really, really key piece. And the whole notion of ramping up versus dialing down. I love that, because I think we can get in this context where we can get in a bit of a tizzy. And at that time, we don't make wise decisions and choices about things. I can reflect on times in my life when I only wish in the moment when a decision had to be made, I'd actually stopped and said, I don't need to make this in the next 15 seconds. What can I do to take a big deep breath and just get off this sort of ramping up of this heightened adrenaline level that's there, because it never serves us in the end to do that. So I love that what's that one thing to do to kind of stop that continual escalation of it.
Absolutely. Well. A colleague actually gave me as a gift one time, it's a little compact mirror, but on the back side of it, it says pause. And that's the idea, is you're going to hit the pause button. So just like you said, if something happens, you don't necessarily need to figure it out in those first 15 seconds. You can hit that pause button. Another mentor of mine actually says even take 3 days, especially if it's something big. Give it 3 days and don't freak out about it until 3 days have gone by. And you'll be amazed at the different opportunities or answers that you're now creating space for, because you're not so busy freaking out.
Yeah.
And the one other thing about that vortex that you mentioned, I really like, because the vortex goes both ways. So you can either spin yourself down to a not so great place, or you can spin yourself up to a really nice place. So if you feel yourself starting to spin, make sure you spin in the right way, because we can very easily spin the wrong way.
Right. So what I'm hearing in this is that we have a huge opportunity to be a choice in here, when we're not allowing ourselves to get caught on that automatic pilot. When we increase our awareness of what's going on around us, so heightening our levels. I'm certified in emotional intelligence and EQ, and this is so much of EQ work, because because every decision we make has an emotional component to it, which is not being emotional, but we have all of our emotions will affect how we make decisions on things. And the more that we become self-aware of what's going on, what those triggers are, how we make decisions, how we our self-regard, all of that kind of stuff is all of this. It's about increasing that awareness of what's going on at any given moment, and then we can choose. And that's so empowering when we actually know that we can choose how we're going to respond, and whether we're feeling empowered in that situation, or whether we're feeling stressed and anxious about it.
It's funny, because when I say that to people in different teaching opportunities, sometimes people get mad because they'll be going off on something, and I'll just say, do you realize you could choose to feel differently about that right now? You could choose to be happy. Like, what do you mean I could choose? Like, just say stop for a minute, take a deep breath, and really think about it. Could you choose to feel differently right now? And it's people are like, first they're like very confused, and they look at me and they're like, I don't get it. But then they stop and they think about it. And they're like, wow, I actually could do that. And it is a huge power point. We give away so much of our own power all the time because we just don't stop and think for a minute. And emotions are easier, right? Emotions, they trigger just like that. Yeah. And it's just easier. And if we can stop, take a deep breath, say, wait a minute, is this what I want to do right now? No, it's really not. What do I want to do? Yeah. It changes everything.
And so it's so surprising to me, I guess, when I've done this work, and you have, I'm sure, as surprised as you are as well, when people are really in a position where they believe that they are the sort of victim of circumstance, and that none of what's happened have they had any control or participation in, and and so it's such encouragement for me that there is still so much work to be done out there, really having people realize that every single thing, what they attract, what they do, I mean, this is the law of attraction at its best, is that when you're in your pity party, you're going to continue to attract that. Exactly. And all you need is that little bit of a shift, and you can start attracting so many different things. And then we aren't victims of our circumstance. We actually are in control. And it's so amazing when people finally get that piece.
It is. You see the light bulb go off, and it's awesome. Yeah. And not that we don't have the right sometimes to I call it a mini pity party. If you need occasionally to have a small indulgence, like instead of a bowl of ice cream, sometimes we indulge in a small pity party. And that's fine. I don't want people out there beating themselves up about that. Now, if you stay in that pity party for days, weeks, months, that's not good for you. So again, we are human. You're entitled to your emotions, but make sure that you're the one controlling that, not the other way around.
Yeah. And in that moment, we can use that to be self-observant as well. Is that, here I am, I'm in this pity party. I'm curious about that. What's this about? What's going on here? What could be the opposite to this emotion I'm feeling? Is this just my perspective? All of that. So in that moment, there's some rich data. Yes. if we decide to be in a position where we're observing it as well as just being in it and wallowing in it for a really long time.
Yes. When you just triggered for me one more tip that I love to share. And that's about the questions that we ask. So we do have a tendency sometimes to ask small questions or just the wrong questions. And if you think about it, if you type a question into Google and it isn't a very good question, you don't get very good results. But if you ask a better question, you'll get better results. So our minds work in a similar fashion. So I'm going to use finances as an example, because that's what I think a lot of people stress about. So rather than asking the question, how am I going to pay all my bills this month? Oh my God, I have all these bills. What am I going to do? What if you were to ask instead, how can I make this month be one of my best months ever? you're going to get very different hits to your intuition asking that question, because you're not coming from lack or fear. So pay attention also. Again, I keep coming back to paying attention. But what are the questions that you are asking yourself? So if you're having that pity party, instead of saying something like, why did this happen to me? Why did so-and-so do that? You know, why can't I get the success I want? Whatever it is, ask a more empowering question. And then let it sit. Ask it at night, even before you go to sleep, and see what answers start coming to you. Ask better questions.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And I often find why questions are very, you know, if we were to talk about, you know, above the line and below the line kind of questions, and the ones that keep you stuck, why questions are often ones that keep you stuck.
Yes.
So, you know, observing, do I ask a lot of why questions even of myself, you know, and then what could it be? And again, with law of attraction, if we're actually asking, so what do I need to do? You know, show me the steps. I'm in the process of attracting enough money to be able to pay all my bills this month and more.
Right.
Or that I will have sufficient enough money this month. That even when we say it feels so differently inside than why am I in this position yet again, and you know, all of that. It's kind of stuck in that vortex, that negative vortex. So
and money's a hard one. You know, money is a big stress for a lot of people. So when you don't have the money that you want, it's hard sometimes to ask those different questions and try and make more empowering statements. But again, build the habit. It just takes some time. It's okay if you don't even totally believe some of the things you say right at first. You want to train your subconscious. So your mind is your conscious mind is the captain of the ship, and your subconscious is the crew. Well, the crew does what it's told. So you need to make sure you're telling the crew what you want it to do.
I love that analogy. That's great to think about it. You have to be able, you have to tell them which direction to focus and what actions to take and how to respond and all of that.
Yes.
Well, Lauren, you know, we have covered off so much. How can people find out more about you and get more tips and strategies from you?
Absolutely. My website is www.drdrlauren, Lauren, Keith, Keith. So drlaurenkeith.com. I'm on Facebook also. Feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, and always happy to chat with people more and just share tips. And I love what I do. I love helping people live a bigger, more robust, more shiny, sparkly life. So happy to talk to people.
That's great, and we might just have to have you back again. We go a little bit deeper dive into this whole topic, because I love this kind of work. So anyway, yeah, my pleasure again. So you can reach her at drlaurenkeith.com, and there's no dot after doctor, is there? It's just doctor.
No, just straight.
So drlaurenkeith.com. And again, for those of you who are watching, you can watch this over and over again. If you go to HangOutWithCoachKerry.com, you'll see episode 83 there, so you can watch it and take notes over again. Please do comment in the comment section so that we can get back to you on the and any questions that you might have, and I will make sure that Dr. Lauren Keith sees them and responds back to them as well.
Absolutely.
And again, everyone, tune in on Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific, or on my website, HangOutWithCoachKerry.com. You can also watch them on YouTube, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. But remember, if you go to my website and you grab my book that's there, you're going to also get updates on upcoming events and programs, and my new program coming up in the new year. And I'll have a bunch of free webinars for you to be able to participate in leading up to that, with lots of great tips and strategies. So Lauren, thank you again for what a great episode. I know we're going to get lots of great positive feedback from it. And so everyone, until next time, have an inspired week. Bye-bye, everybody.